Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. As U.S. and Israeli strikes target Iran, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has voiced his support, arguing that Tehran's actions demand consequences. Yet even as events escalate in the Middle East, Russian forces continue launching assaults on Ukrainian cities, as they have for 4 years, often relying on Iranian-designed drone technology. Now, with the U.S. now focused on the Middle East, what does this mean for American support for Ukraine? Let's analyze the latest with Mikhail Alexseev, professor of political science, San Diego State University. Good to have you on TVP World. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Let's begin with President Volodymyr Zelensky's support. He's been very public about this, supporting the Americans and the Israelis in the strike, maybe out of loyalty. What do you make of his strategic decision? Could that backfire in any way, or does it strengthen Ukraine's position?
Well, I think definitely it strengthens Ukraine's position. I think Zelensky is showing that he wants to be of help to the United States, even in the conditions when his country is under massive daily attacks, proposing to send Ukrainian experts in anti-drone warfare to help the effort. Obviously, I believe the number he cited was 5,700 of those long-range drones based on the Iranian design, originally imported from Iran and then produced in Russia, now with Chinese parts. And so we have that development that puts Ukraine kind of a little bit more on the map. At the same time, it seems that Zelensky and Ukraine are disadvantaged by this new development because the attention moves away from Ukraine and resources that could be provided to Ukraine to defend against Russian attacks may be used elsewhere.
Yeah, and on that note, as you said, I mean, right now, Ukraine still relies very heavily on Patriot missile batteries. Still not enough, but nevertheless, they are there. They're crucial for Ukraine. As this conflict may escalate, as it continues, if it's a few days, if it's a few weeks, who knows? What if the Americans start using their own supplies? They will have to defend U.S. bases and assets around the region in the Gulf. How would that impact, and how vulnerable is Ukraine then for some of those deliveries not to go to Ukraine?
Well, Ukraine is very vulnerable. Russian production of missiles including ballistic missiles, runs into hundreds a month. And so for Ukraine to defend itself, particularly against those attacks, it has significant capacity to beat back those drones, even though quite a few of them, maybe about 15% or so, does get through the defenses, and because of the sheer numbers causes a lot of damage. But ballistic missiles harder to hit. And obviously, that one issue that raises is if Ukraine can ultimately get or at least some partners of Ukraine can get licenses to produce those missiles for Patriot systems.
Mm-hmm. And all those strikes, and you mentioned missiles, and actually this is some pretty intense news here from, I believe this is from the AFP, this comes from recent data that according to them, that February actually was one of the highest months where Ukraine actually was bombed by missiles and drones, the highest since 2023. With this now, and the vulnerability, as you said, how do you see Vladimir Putin now? Will he take more steps? Will he become more aggressive? Is he going to watch how this plays out? How vulnerable in terms of the battlefield does this make Ukraine?
Well, unfortunately, these new developments are a setback, I think, for any kind of peace process, for any sort of ceasefire negotiations, because they simply enable Putin counting on distraction and counting on diversion of resources to continue his attacks and his objectives to subjugate Ukraine under Russian control.
Mm-hmm. And exactly on the peace process as well. I mean, we heard that already recently. President Zelensky saying and the idea was to actually meet in Abu Dhabi. That doesn't look very certain over these next few days. I think he talked about different cities potentially. What does happen next in your mind realistically? I mean, do you think that Trump and his envoys have any capacity right now for now sitting down with Ukraine? What does that do to the peace negotiations?
Well, if there is any silver lining of these new developments for Ukraine, is that it shows that United States can be very decisive in using significant force to achieve objectives, and if negotiations don't work. So, I obviously the difference between places like Iran and Ayatollah Khomeini, places like Syria, places like Venezuela and Russia, is that Russia is a nuclear power. So Putin, while seeing and feeling nervous, obviously, about what Trump is doing and how he's removing autocrats that cause security concerns, he probably feels rather safe in that regard. But at the same time, it may be an inducement to maybe be somewhat more flexible down the road. But it depends on how Donald Trump moves on along with Iran or following the Iran campaign. The critical thing to watch is whether there will be a signal that Russia would incur higher costs of its invasion. And unfortunately, our administration's approach to these negotiations has been to offer Russia rather positive incentives, such as opening up for business and removing sanctions, and then putting pressure on Ukraine and hoping that that somehow would result in a solution. But unless we see another turnaround back to providing Ukraine with more assistance, resuming Tomahawk missile issue, resuming the issue of blocking Russian illegal oil shipments and things like that, then that is not going to move on.
Yeah. And also, one thing that Putin has not liked at all is Europe's role in all this, of trying to help support Ukraine militarily, but also diplomatically. That was one of his main gripes. He wanted to negotiate directly with the Americans. Now, seeing this conflict unfold, that argument always has been for Europeans, look, you invaded illegally, this is not okay to do. We now have a very, let's say, complicated situation in Iran. How does this impact, let's say, that case that Europeans have with against Russia?
Well, I mean, I think it should strengthen European unity and resolve to help Ukraine, because the distraction, the negative elements, negative fallout, let's put it like this, for Ukraine from this campaign, emboldening Putin. In fact, we are talking not just about some kind of, say, retreat of Ukraine and ceding some territory and sealing some kind of ceasefire. We're talking about the prospect, which did not seem necessarily all that great over the last couple of years, but it's now more possible that Putin may actually get more advances in Ukraine. He may grind down Ukrainian resistance. And in the Ukrainian public opinion, we may see fissures showing discontent with the West, and even the kind of view that Ukraine and the West are more of a barrier on the road to peace, that it might be easier to submit to Putin and turn against the West in that situation. And that creates another enabling of Putin, that creates the prospect for the danger of Putin getting hold of Ukraine and using Ukraine and its resources, both military and economic, to advance his claims in Europe and other parts of the world.
Mm-hmm. And one thing also that's going to be a measure of how things go is also public opinion. I mean, you're based in the United States, in California. I mean, Donald Trump campaigned on no more foreign wars, not to get entangled in the Middle East. What the information that we have right now, how is that going to impact, let's say, Trump's decision, not just in Iran, but then also how the Americans feel about conflicts and Russia and Ukraine? Give us your take.
Well, it's I don't really have a lot of hard data on your question exactly, but if we look at political statements, it seems like the perceptions and the fallout is falling more or less along the partisan lines. there is overall support for removing the regime in Iran. But then there is a debate on to what extent it's legal, to what extent Congress should be involved, a concern that Congress has given up its position in the checks and balances, given too much power to the president. But those kinds of issues have been there before, and they reflect that kind of partisan divide. So, in a sense, we may not see right now yet tremendous impact or tremendous change in the configuration of political support for the current administration.
Mm-hmm. And then also one thing that's in the back of all this very much, maybe not in the back, in the forefront, is energy. I mean, this has been a key issue. Putin has weaponized this right now. As we see oil, let's say, spike at this moment, I think we're hovering around $80 a barrel. We're not sure if the Strait of Hormuz continues to be, let's say, siphoned off, closed, limited, or let's say worst case. How does this impact, let's say, Russia's ability now to gain from this? I mean, more revenues, that'll eventually hit Kremlin coffers. They can buy more weaponry. How is this protracted conflict going to impact energy and that effect for the Kremlin?
Well, it certainly helps Russia, and it also again increases in Putin's confidence in his capacity to sustain the war, and even put pressure on Europe and cause discord in Europe. For example, with Hungary and Slovakia, and we know about that Druzhba pipeline issue that Hungarian leadership has been raising with Ukraine. So Russia clearly can capitalize on these things and can obviously get more revenue. Another possibility is that India will watch India, and India promised to stop buying oil from Russia in exchange for the tariff and trade deal with the United States. But if the situation in Iran, around Iran and the Gulf continues to be detrimental to global oil shipments and global oil price continues to stay high, that would be another question. Could India kind of back down on that part of the deal, and that Russia would be getting more and more of that oil revenue?
Yeah, okay. So as this whole situation does unfold, obviously Ukraine is right in the middle as well. And thanks for giving us the latest there of all those different angles. Professor Mikhail Alexseev, San Diego State University, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you for watching. This concludes World Talks. We'll stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.